Okay, Bible and Daily Lifers, here we are. We are finishing up the Gospel of Mark, 16 chapters. Now, that's the shortest gospel. Some people say that it was the original gospel, the first one that was written. Some people say that it's really the Gospel of Peter because Mark ends up hanging out with Peter, and Peter being an original apostle himself and being with Christ and having all of those intimate experiences with Jesus. Telling them to Mark, and then Mark putting them in the form of a gospel. And he also was a companion of Paul. So, he learned the gospel, and they say it's the first one, and that some of them, they say that some of them used Mark's gospel as an outline to do the other gospels. So, be it what it may be, probably Luke used it because Luke tells us that he used other sources to write his gospel, that he did a careful investigation of all of these things to see if they would be true. But this is Mark's gospel, and he's finishing it up. Chapter 16, when the Sabbath was over. So they would have been hibernating. They would have been in hiding. They would have been quiet. They would have been resting. They would have been retreating on the Sabbath day. Now keep in mind that this is the Passover week, and everybody's in Jerusalem, tens of thousands of people, probably hundreds of thousands of people. And when the Sabbath comes, they all sort of slow down for that 24-hour period. So when the Sabbath was over, when it was finished, Mary Magdalene, who we learned about her before, Jesus had cast unclean spirits out of her. And some people say that Mary Magdalene was a prostitute, and that the unclean spirits that Jesus cast out of her were of a sexual nature, maybe prostitution, whatever. But Mary Magdalene's reputation as a prostitute actually comes from a sermon, an Easter sermon, that a pope had preached, I think about 600 years ago. So that was his interpretation of it. Maybe so, maybe not. We don't really know. But people have been saying it ever since he said it on that Easter Sunday in that homily. So when the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, you need to distinguish the Marys. There are an awful lot of Marys in the day. My name is Joe in my day. That was a very common name, not as common anymore. But Mary was a very, very common name in the Bible. So you have Mary Magdalene and you have Mary, the mother of James, and Salome. They brought spices that they might go to anoint Jesus' body. Well, he had already been prepared for burial. If we go back a couple of chapters where the woman with the alabaster jar poured perfume all over him, and they were all saying, we could have used this money for the poor. And Jesus said, she did this in preparation for my death, for my burial. Well, he's been crucified, and the Sabbath comes, and they're not supposed to work on the Sabbath. So they come back, and they are going to wash the body and anoint the body and treat it with respect. So very early on the first day of the week, that would have been Sunday, they traditionally kept the Sabbath on Saturday. And here it is, the first day of the week, so it would have been Sunday. That's why we call it Easter Sunday or Resurrection Sunday. Just after sunrise, first thing in the morning. So they are ready. They are ready and rearing to go out and see where Jesus was buried, where Jesus was dead. They were on the way to the tomb, and they asked each other, who will roll away the stone? Who will roll away the stone from the entrance of the tomb? But when they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. And as they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in white sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. Well, I'd be alarmed too. You have all of this going on. The stone is rolled away, and there's a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side. They're alarmed. And he said, don't be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus, the Nazarene, who was crucified. He has risen, just as he said, 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of a great fish. He said that's the only sign you'll get, just the sign of Jonah. Well, he has risen from the dead. He is no longer dead. Jesus has come out of the tomb. He's alive. He's not here. He's alive. See the place where they laid him? And the man, or whoever this man is, this mysterious man, this man in white, this man sitting on the side, this man in glistening white, says, take a look here. This is where they laid him. But now go and tell his disciples and Peter Peter, the last we really kind of see of him is when he's denying Jesus. Jesus had told him that he would deny him 3 times before the rooster crows in the morning, and Peter said, I wouldn't do it, and then finally he does it the 3 times, and we sort of leave off with Peter denying him for the 3rd time and Jesus looking at him. And so Peter seems to be pretty distraught. He's taken off. He's going back to fishing. He's giving up on this whole thing. He's depressed. He's confused. Go get the disciples and go get Peter. He's going ahead of you into Galilee. Well, that's what Jesus said. He said that after he rose from the dead, he would go and he would meet them in Galilee. Now, they forgot all about this. They were looking for an earthly kingdom. They were looking for an earthly king. But here, Jesus is on his way to Galilee, and he's going to meet them there. And they said, there you will see him just as he told you. Well, of course it'll be just as he told you. We so often either don't hear what he's saying or forget what he's saying or get confused what he's saying. So trembling and bewildered, the woman went out and fled from the tomb. Trembling and bewildered. They fled, they ran, and they said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. They were afraid. One of the other Gospels says they were filled with fear and with joy. Amazing how those two emotions together, fear and joy combined together, how can they be experiencing both of them at the same exact time? But yet they are. So verse 9, and verse 9 here, when Jesus rose early on the first day of the week, he appeared to Mary Magdalene, out of whom he had driven 7 demons. And she went out and told those who had been with him and those who were mourning and weeping. And when they heard that Jesus was alive and that she had seen them, they didn't believe. Well, it's reasonable, I guess, on one level to not believe. Humanly, people don't just rise from the dead and walk out of tombs and head to the next town. But it's unreasonable. It's reasonable because that's what happens in life. But it's unreasonable in that if Jesus told you that he was going to rise from the dead, then Jesus is going to rise from the dead. You can believe Jesus. So, reasonable, unreasonable. Afterwards, Jesus appeared in a different form to 2 of them when they were walking in the country. And they returned and they reported it to the rest, but they didn't believe it either. They didn't believe it. They were like, I haven't seen it. Well, that's what we say with so much. We say it about miracles. Well, I've never seen a miracle. No, it doesn't mean it don't happen just because you didn't see it. So here they are, and they're not believing. But later, Jesus appeared to the 11 as they were eating. So they're sticking together, and they're hanging out, probably confused what's going on. They're hearing these strange reports, hearing what's going on. And he rebuked them for their lack of faith and their stubborn refusal to believe those who had seen him after he had risen. So not only were they not believing, but they had their feet dug in. So many times we're bothered by people, they've really got their feet dug in. Well, these guys had their feet dug in. They refused to believe that Jesus had risen from the dead. Refused to. And then he said to them, go into all of the world and preach the good news to all creation. Wow, this is quite the commission. There's 11 of them there eating in a room. And he gives them a worldwide mission. He tells them to go into all of the world. Every people, every tribe, every tongue, every language, every people. You go everywhere and start preaching this. You go everywhere. And whoever believes and is baptized will be saved. But whoever doesn't believe will be condemned. It's just that easy. You're either in or you're out. How do you get in? You get in by just believing what Jesus said. Well, these guys didn't believe, but now they're believing. Now they're believing. Now these are signs will accompany those who believe, Jesus says. In my name, they'll drive out demons. All right, fair enough. They'll speak with new tongues or speak with other tongues. Is that the gift of tongues? Is that the prayer language that God gives some people? Is that glossolalia, speaking in tongues, which happens in Acts 2? Or is it cleaning up your language, speaking in a new tongue? It's glossolalia, the tongues of men and of angels, it seems there. They'll pick up snakes with their hands, and when they drink any deadly poison, it will not harm them at all. Wow, that's pretty radical. Well, this happened to the Apostle Paul when he was shipwrecked. A viper bit him, and everyone thought, he was going to die because the viper bit him, and he shook it off into the fire, and nothing happened to him. God has been known to protect his people in the oddest of circumstances, and God will protect you, and God will protect me. And now, on the other hand, we don't tempt the Lord. That's what how Jesus used Psalm 91. Psalm 91 says the Lord will protect you. And then later on, Satan used that psalm to tempt Jesus, to tempt the Lord. He said, jump off the pinnacle of the temple. And Jesus said, you don't use Scripture that way. So God protects people. And then it says that they will place their hands on sick people and they'll get well. Well, there's that whole thing of putting your hand on somebody, praying for the sick and praying that they get well. We do that. We put hands on people and pray they get well. And after the Lord had spoken to them, he was taken up into heaven and sat at the right hand of God. The disciples went out and preached everywhere, and the Lord worked with them and confirmed his word by the signs that accompanied it. So there's the beginning of the global movement of Christianity, the global Christian movement. Moving around the globe with these guys, 11 of them, starts with them, and now this thing has spread all over the globe and is continuing to spread, and we're continuing to do the same thing that Jesus told these guys to do. We're going out and preaching the good news to all creation, to all people. We're doing it near and we're doing it far. So let's just continue, and we'll be in the Gospel of Luke following this, another gospel, and we'll explain why it's a different gospel. Why are there four? Why are there four gospel writers? So Bible in Daily Life, find us where you find us. Find us on YouTube. Find us on BibleInDailyLife.com. Find us on iTunes. Find us wherever you find podcasts. Where else can you find us? I think you can find us on iHeartRadio. You can find us all over the place. So Bible in Daily Life, through the New Testament in a year. You might need to use those as you search, as you use Google, as you search on YouTube, whatever. Bible in Daily Life, through the New Testament in a year. Or maybe the chapter. Sometimes if you just Google it by the chapter, if you went Mark 16, it might show up. But you know how those algorithms and search engines are. They're bizarre. So I love you guys. We're moving ahead. It's fun stuff. So bless you, bless you, bless you. You are loved, you are loved, you are loved. Peace.